Um, uh, Again, as I mentioned, this panel that's going to take place right now is about us listening to our young folks. Um, and they are crucial. And I just got a note that they're all set and ready to go. And the first person I want to bring up is our moderator. And you know, when I asked him to be moderator, we didn't have an order set yet for what panel is going to come up when. But it's so perfect because this young man, and I still call him that because he is, but he's a son of Rochester, and that's really, really important. And as I mentioned earlier, all the bios of our moderators and panelists are on ABC's website. But conversation we just had with respect to how education can help on this pathway to wellness. Our moderator is a regent of the state of New York, and I don't think that is unimportant. As a matter of fact, let me say it in a positive way. That's really, really important. And with respect to continuity for what we just had, he's an accomplished young man, and what he's done in his just few years already is quite admirable. And I'm one of his fans, and he's here working double, triple time. Adrian, good afternoon. And I'll just hand it over to you, brother, and you can introduce the panel as you see fit. But thank you for being here, brother.
For sure. No. Good afternoon, Jerome. It's a pleasure to be asked and to be sharing this time and this space with you all. I'd love to ask our panelists to come on screen now if you can, so we can have a honest, open, and transparent conversation about a very important topic that I know folks really want to hear from. So if everybody can start coming on, I see Shantira, I see Madeline, I see Devin. Where are you at, Isaiah? He might be having some tech difficulties. There you go, right there. Perfect. Good to see you. Good to see you. Didn't see you at the gym this morning. I'm gonna have to get you back for that. But you here. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad y'all tuned in because I think a lot of times we see some of the symptoms of how young people deal and cope with their mental wellness and overall health. But we're going to be able to talk to some young people today from across the community about ways that they cope and their perspective and the work that they're doing. So before we get into this very important conversation, I want to just take time to let each of you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do and why mental wellness is important to you. Let's start with Madeline. Ladies first.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Beautiful. So, my name is Madeline Funches, of course. I got my start in this work very honest. I watched my mother do mental health work all of my life. But I also feel like my work takes a new revolutionary turn because I want wellness for the people who make our community well. And it really is for everyone, and wellness that's like actually inclusive. And so this conversation is like right up my alley because I'm at the table with a lot of other people who are very, very, very productive in talking about trauma and healing and wellness and moving forward and through the lens of, like you said, education. That's my biggest thing. I do a lot of trainings. I've worked for Citizen Action of New York to do like political training for our community, to give our communities essentially tools to be as well as possible. So that's me.
Thank you so much for your service, Madeline. Shantira?
Hi, everybody. So I am Shantara Mitchell, but most of the community knows me as Shan. I am the program director at the Center for Teen Empowerment. This work is important to me for a lot of reasons. I work with a variety of different young people who come from a variety of different backgrounds, who are dealing with substantial amount of traumas, who are also extremely resilient. And so working with these these young people to, you know, speak truth to power, to try to create peace, equity, and justice in our community. Those young people also need a ton of support to be able to navigate the traumas that they're experiencing, to be able to have to access the different resources and mental health services that are out there for them. And so for me, this work is important because in order to be able to effectively do the work we want young people to do in our community, we also have to make sure that we're dealing with the whole child and that we're making sure that they are mentally and emotionally and psychologically cared for and that they are healthy so that they can continue to do this work. And I'm going to steal something that Elder Jerome always says, which is like, young people are right now. They are not the future. They are right now. And so we need to make sure that we're taking care of them right now. So that's why I'm here today on this panel.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you for the energy. Devin, talk to us.
Peace. Can everybody hear me?
Mhm.
Yes, my name is Devin Reynolds, just a concerned community member. I believe that investing in our youth today is imperative. Frederick Douglass once said, it's easier to build up a strong man than repair a broken one. And I take that to the heart as a father of 5 boys, and I'm just in the battle to make a change.
Mhm. Last but not least, the youngest elected member to the Rochester Board of Education, Mr. Santiago.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Santiago. I am 19 years old. So I know that Mr. Jerome said earlier that everybody on the panel is 30 years old. And no offense to everybody else on the panel, but I'm 19. So, you know, I got a couple more years to go before I get there. I am the youngest elected official to the Rochester City School Board, being named Commissioner of Education. I sit there being able to, I just got sworn in January 2nd, and I'm now taking on the role. I'm the youngest in the history of Rochester to be elected, but it really all started at 16 years old when I created an organization titled We Got This to combat youth gun violence through peer-to-peer mentorship and through going through passions and talents to help our young people go down the right avenue of life. Through there, we were able to bring a lot of young people out of gun violence through youth mentorship, recording music, and performing at events around the city of Rochester. And then later down the line, going into my senior year of high school, I began to create the mental health literacy curriculum, which is still being worked on and will soon be in all of our high schools in the Rochester City School District. Youth mental health is an important topic to me. I think as we have conversations about many of the issues and the contemporary issues that we have involving our young people, we have to hear and open our ears to the concerns that they have. And as we have seen through studies and as we have seen through data, mental health has been, and mental wellness has been at the top of the conversation. And I believe that as we face so many issues, I mean, we see young people at the top of many of these issues, both positive and negative. I believe that we must allow them to sit at the table in the conversation and do some things differently. I think we see a lot of old policies and old processes dealing with new issues and new circumstances and new generations. But we've seen that to be ineffective. And who better to be part of the conversation when it comes to policy reform and new ideas than the younger generation?
Yep. I appreciate that, Isaiah, and honestly, all of you. And I just want to take the time out before we start this conversation to thank you all for the work that you're doing in the community, because it's very important and it's necessary. I also want to say this: you don't have to leave unless you're somewhere where there's a lot of noise. I don't want y'all to feel like you have to leave yourself on mute, because I want to build a conversational tone to this panel. So I really want to start at the heart of it too, because I'm sure we got a lot of parents, maybe some grandparents on here. So I want to start with hidden pressures. And even though we're all community leaders, I think it's important that we all speak from an authentic place of where we are in life, our experiences, and our age. Because if we don't speak these hidden truths and these hidden pressures, a lot of parents and grandparents aren't going to know how to be there for the young ones that they love. So let's just start with this. A lot of us, we know the conditions in our city. They're far from the best. They're subpar, substandard. And a lot of us look to cope in ways like social media, maybe even relationships that aren't healthy or toxic. Can you talk about some of the unhealthy ways that you found in your work and in your experiences that some folks are really trying to utilize to cope with the hidden pressures, frustrations, and traumas of what it means to be a young person of color in this city?
Can I just hop in first?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, so I love that immediately you started with the media,
Mhm.
because I think we've reached a point in our society, right, with wellness where it's like not okay to be okay. And we're working really hard to try to like erase stigma. But I think social media is working really hard to give people an image or a snapshot, a quick shot of what people's lives look like. And I think it gives a lot of our youth an opportunity to showcase maybe that they're doing better than they might be actually doing. Maybe they're, you know, a lot of the culture among our youth is to not care about things. It's actually really, really cool to not have feelings right now. That's really in right now. And so it's sometimes really hard for us to really have good conversations because we have youth that are so pressured to be okay, to seem up, even, you know, I'm up, even if I'm not up, I'm up all the time. And I think that, you know, is something that was passed to us in some ways generationally, right? And it's a curse that we see that's a harder one for us to break. But as we grow and have more conversations like this one, and as we continue to be relentless in breaking down some of those barriers, hopefully we'll see that change. But I do think there's a lot of pressure to just look put together, to look like you know what you're doing. And I think our youth, anybody, you know, experience it, yeah, it takes a long time. There are people who have been on this earth quite a few years and still have not figured out how to feel okay, how to be well. And so I think it's important for us to acknowledge that.
I want to go back to your point about it's really cool not to be okay. What message is that one person to another trying to send? Like that I don't care about you, you can't hurt me. It's like what's motivating that mindset?
I think it's a defense mechanism, truly. I think it has to do with, I think our youth have reached out for quite some time. There's been a lot of good resources for our kids, not as many as there should be, no. But there have been time again, TE has been around for a long time where kids are telling us how it is that they truly do feel. They've given it that. And I think they haven't been met all the time. We have to be honest about not having as many opportunities for them to feel heard or for them to actually have their concerns addressed. Yeah, we passed them the mic to say what they felt, but what do we do about it after? And I think to keep ourselves safe, because people open up, what happens is a child will open up, a person will open up no matter how old you are. And if you're not met with a response that helped you feel different, that changed something about it, now next time you're not going to be so quick to open up. You're going to be like, you know what, it's okay for me not to say anything. It's okay for me to sit in silence. Nobody wants to see me win anyway. You know, they're not going to have anything to say. And it becomes like a vicious cycle, I believe.
And if you're a caregiver, let's say you're a parent, grandparent, or a guardian, what do you think the most effective way to break through and make that person feel like you hear them and that you care? I mean, and it's not, I mean, this is to anybody, please, anybody can.
I'm not a parent, yeah, so I don't want to answer, and I don't want to speak for a parent.
Speaking from a young person's perspective, what is it that you think they would be looking for? Because I think to Isaiah's point, I feel like even though it's not that many years between some parents and their kids, I feel like because of technology and the way we grew up, the culture that we grew up in, it has made us very different. And I feel like a lot of times we're talking past each other. And I think that we're getting lost in translation. Well, I think a lot of parents might feel, or guardians might feel like they're trying to respond to something they heard, but the way they respond isn't the way that young person is looking for them to respond.
Well,
So
I think
from a young person perspective, what do you think they could be looking for?
human first.
How would a caring adult or even a peer show that I care, you can open up around me?
I think that just looks like human first. I think a lot of times the reason why kids go to their friends before they go to an adult is because they have more common ground. They're seemingly with another child than they might with an adult, not realizing adults, because they are covered under the blanket of adults. We forget that they've had experiences that could be similar to our experiences, but because they're adults, we've then portioned them off. They're different, they're other, they're not a part of it. I think when parents talk to their kids, it's important to talk to your kid as a human. Mom had feelings too. Today was a hard day. I yelled at you because X, Y, and Z, and it wasn't okay. I need you to know that I was frustrated and it's not okay for me to take it out on you. I'm a person with feelings and I let that get out of hand, and you are a child and I owe you an apology. It looks like taking it on as a human. Sometimes we beat around the bush. You owe me respect. Nobody owes you. Like, we're at a day and age where youth are not playing that I owe you respect game anymore. That is dead. We're not doing that any longer.
And I,
Yeah, it's
I'm
it's
glad
earned.
you said that because you're talking about a different set of values, different set of norms from younger age groups than older age groups. Devin, you work in a barber shop, like you see young men, older men come in and out all the time. I know a lot of barbers just by default end up being the psychiatrist and the therapist. What's some ways you feel like there could be more constructive dialogue between the generations? Because Madeline just hit the nail on the head, right? We have a different code, a different set of conduct, a different understanding of the world than some of the OGs. How do we get on the same page?
Well, what I noticed is there's a lack of accountability. It's a lot of a blame game when it comes down from different generations. From our older generation, they'll blame us for not following directions. And the Kia Boy situation this summer, you had people that was my age, 32, and we talking down on the 16-year-olds. So it's definitely a disconnect. And accountability is not being taken from the parents and the mentors from the generation before. But to go back to your original question, I came to realize as a barber and being in those spaces and just as a 32-year-old man, my generation is in that piece. It's constant competition, depression, agony, death, and fear constantly plagues the mental daily. I have had friends who was killed by gun violence. I also have friends who overdosed, and we run to medicating, alcohol, weed, pills, to try to escape the reality, the harsh reality that we go through, and that's the way I see. That's the way I see my generation coping with the trauma that they're dealing with.
First off, I appreciate you for being so transparent, and so candid about your experience. My follow-up question would be, because you hit on a big thing, the self-medication piece, which is we all going through hurt, but the way that we think we can address that hurt is not healthy. It's not healthy. So my question would be, back to the group, like first, before we even get to behaviors and actions, because it's not that simple, right? Why don't you feel like people take a more meaningful way, a meaningful means to try to really address with their inner issues? Are people afraid of their truth? Do people not believe it's possible to be healthy and free and happy? Like, why don't we really try to do the work of going to therapy, talking to people, putting ourselves in positive people, places, and things? I'm sorry, Shantira, you were about to say something?
No, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think about that all the time. I think that we forget sometimes that there's still a stigma, right? I mean, it's still very difficult to trust these institutions that are really built on racism. So we have compounding traumas. We have our own personal traumas that we're going through on a daily in our lives. Our young people, same thing. And then we have mistrust of institutions, mistrust of healthcare environments. And so for us, you want us to walk into a lot of these places where we feel like we're not welcomed. When I was teaching in the district, I know parents who came into the school and it was a trigger for them. They struggled with education, they struggle academically. And so now they have to then walk into these spaces and know how to communicate with educators, staff and principals. And so they're dealing with their own traumas. And I think Maddie said it about this intergenerational trauma that's being passed down. You have to also be aware of those toolkits. You don't wake up, you're not born with the tools and the skills to be able to deal with and cope with the trauma that you're experiencing. And I think sometimes we forget that young people, and I want to say this, Black and brown young people are oftentimes looked at immediately as very resilient. And we also have to be aware that resilience comes from an extreme amount of trauma. And so we overlook them when they're smiling, when they're stealing cars, when they're fighting. Nothing wrong with them. They just out here just doing crazy stuff. And the reality is they have a whole bunch of trauma that they're dealing with that no one has showed them how to express and how to get out of. And Devin and I are only a couple of years apart, but again, we're millennials and we're dealing with the same thing. Right. And so think about that. Now I'm a mother of 2 boys and I have a daughter. So now I'm a mother. I'm trying to navigate my own stuff, trying to develop my toolkit of how to overcome the trauma that I'm experiencing in my life, in the workplace, in my community. I live in a city. I'm raising my family in a city. And now I have to tell my son how to also overcome traumas that he's experiencing. And so I feel like when you talk about dealing with trauma, overcoming those things and why we're not doing it in a healthy way, give me the time. First of all, give me the time to deal with it in a healthy way, and then give me the resources that I need to be able to deal with it in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think Tara just hit on something crazy. All right. So first, it wasn't passed down. I never seen my mom go to therapy. I never seen my dad go to therapy. I never heard a grandma talking about therapy. The most I ever heard of dealing with trauma was praying. And the way reality hits is this is my perspective. Praying and asking for something and not hearing anything back or seeing any change becomes discouraging. Is there a God? If so, why did he take my friend who's a father? You know, why did my father overdose? You know, things in that. So it's only thing I have ever learned was to pray. And it seems like praying wasn't working. So that's first. It wasn't passed down and it's not in our culture to go to therapy. Well, in my culture, I won't speak for everybody because Madeline mama is Mama Mel. So second, I have way too much responsibilities to even think about my trauma. And I'm speaking as a Black man. It's not. It wasn't spoken about.
Go back, Devin.
Especially coming in and being raised in the shop.
Go back a little bit because I can't hear you.
Keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? You brush it off. And
Devin.
so as a Black man, I was never taught or never it was never well as well as a father of 5, a business owner. Do I actually have time?
I'm trying to text him right now, y'all. So I'm trying to.
Can you hear me?
You blanking out.
Mommy, I froze.
There you go. Say something.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Can you hear me?
Yep, that's better, Dev.
Can you hear me now?
It's the connectivity.
Yeah, hold up, because you got on some important points about the praying and your culture, and yeah, there you go, perfect. Reset that because he was hitting on some important stuff here. Shantira, you set him up perfectly though. I want to revisit some of your comments because you talked about stigma, which is extremely important because that goes back to culture and how we see ourselves and what we want for ourselves. So take me back to because I think before you give people like the basic crayon box, oh, you should do this, you should do that. It's important that you understand why we're doing what we're doing. And so what is, for the person who wasn't exposed to any of that stuff, tell me, what does freedom and overcoming look like? Or does that never even cross their mind from the work that you've been doing at TE? A life free from that kind of pain? Or does it look like I'm going to move because my problems are here. If I move, I ain't going to have those problems. Or I'm going to go if I just date this person, or if I just get this many followers, or if I just get this many reactions to myself. Tell me what it looks like. If I get the brand new Jay's Wait Outside to get like, what does it talk to me about? What does it look like? What is the aspiration?
Yeah, and I will also open it up to Maddie and Isaiah too, because they're younger, they're closer to it than I am. But I'll say this: I think it's a false sense of power, right? It's a false sense of respect, right? And so it's the reason why if you step on my J's, I'm gonna fight you, or you might lose your life, because this is all I have, right? I don't own my home, I don't own these blocks, I don't own these stores, I don't own any of this, and so all I have is my respect. And so if you disrespect me, it's a problem. And so there's this false sense of power and false sense of connection to a lot of these things. And I think when you're a young person, your mind is developing, right? So you're developing, you're growing, your brains is still forming all of these synapses and these connections. You don't have time to think about the future. I'm not thinking about who I'm going to be 10, 15 years from now. A lot of times I am living in the moment. You want me to come in, you want me to focus on doing this homework assignment, you want me to focus on class, but my stomach is growling louder than the pen that's on the paper, right? And so for us, we have a lot of high expectations of young people, and we have to be able to meet young people where they are. Because I think one of the things that I love about working at Teen Empowerment is a lot of times young people, all they want you to do is be like, tell me about it. Right? And I was like, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to talk? Yes, I want to talk about all of the stuff that I'm dealing with, and they will lay it out on the line. But I think the other powerful thing is what I'm looking at on this screen right now. And it's being able to express and see myself. I walk into places all the time where it doesn't look like me. And I think there is power in being able to tell your story, to be able to connect, to have affinity groups, and being able to communicate with people who look like you and also have similar experiences that you have. So I'll put that out there.
I want to hop in next too, because I know we talk about I'm Melanie Funches' daughter. So I was born with the tools and the skills, baby. And I want to say that, but then it also takes another turn. It's like, that's not even enough, unfortunately. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Here's the thing though, even when you know that you're going the wrong way, when you've been going the wrong way for quite some time, it is really hard to turn around. It is very hard to turn around. And our young people, if they turn around, who's going to be there? If I stop this, what's going to happen? Who's the person I'm going to be? I've been in this trauma so long, I don't know who I am. Let me tell you something. I'm 22 years old. I graduated high school in 2019. I did not know, just mental health wise. I'm Melanie Funches' daughter. I'm inside, but mental health wise, I did not know that I would make it to be 22. So now today at 22, I'm just living, baby. I'm moving and I'm shaking. They told me that they want me here and I'm here. The work called me to it and I'm here for it. I did my first protest when I was a senior in high school under Citizen Action about the school to prison pipeline. When the opportunities presented themselves, I just took it. It wasn't that I knew I was going to be here today talking to you guys today. It wasn't any of that. It's because somebody offered something to me and I took it. That's all it was. And so that's why I say that even if you do, eliminate stigma, I knew it was okay for me to tell my mom I was depressed, but then I'm depressed. Now what? Does the community have what it takes to get Melanie Funches to what she needs to get for her daughter because her daughter's depressed? You know what I mean? And I'll share this with you guys too, is that just because you got through the door and you got to the doctor doesn't exactly ensure that things will happen properly. I went on my first antidepressant in the 3rd grade. That's because Black kids are seen to be older and perceived to be older than what they are. You don't put no 30 year, you're careful about medicating kids, but they medicated me. And that's the child of a mental health professional. So it's a step further. We have to do what we have to do internally, but also being very, very intentional to letting kids know that they can trust. We can trust that you can turn around. You can trust that we can fix it, that you're going to walk through it. Because that's tough, baby. And my mom is some of the best, and we know that. And this is the best experience that a child could have. So what can we do now to, combat that?
First off, I appreciate you for saying that. And I want to shift gears a little bit because I think sometimes we overlook some of the other Black and brown kids who might not be growing up the way I grew up and some of you all grew up, but they living in a house with a pastor, a teacher, somebody making 6 figures. They looked upon like you got everything, but they're dealing with a lot of other issues. Some of it's pressure. Some of it's you have to be this because you so-and-so daughter, so-and-so grandson, so-and-so's little brother, little sister, and they get the disease to please. So I think to your point, you just brought up a whole nother piece to the conversation that we overlook sometimes because we run right to the people in the projects in the hood where a lot of us came from when y'all going through it in your own way. So I appreciate you for being transparent and opening up. Devin, before technology tried to assault the wisdom you was giving us, I need you to run that back.
She had led me in a perfect segue. So what I was speaking on was what hit me when she said, "Do I have time for this?" I'm a father of five. I'm a businessman. I have 4 different locations. Do I have time to sit back and try to process my trauma when life goes on every day? I never watched or was had a example of watching a man do that. So I don't know what that looks like. I can barely find time to do homework with the kids. I have to literally carve that out in the schedule. So to be able to sit back and try to break down and process my trauma, can I do that? Do I have time for that? Do I have the bandwidth to do that? So that's another thing. Poverty is real, and when you're fighting and striving to get out of poverty, it seems like you don't have time to be able to process the trauma that you're going through, either directly or vicariously.
I appreciate that. You know, shifting gears a little bit, Isaiah, you young. I think some of the first issues you really attached yourself to were mental health issues. And now you are on the Board of Education. You got a lot of responsibility. How did mental health grab a hold of you? And talk through what it's like being 19 years old with this incredible amount of responsibility. And how you dealing with that?
Yeah, absolutely. When I speak from personal experience. And everything that I've gone through, I've learned that there's ways that I can turn it in my favor. And really, as you've seen all my work from 16 years old, starting the organization, the rec center, I started that because I remember when I was in middle school and I was constantly getting suspended and I was constantly in ISS, I was constantly in fights. What brought me out of that was figuring out that I had a purpose, figuring out that I was good at photography. I loved photography. And then we had a graduation ceremony and they put me in front of an audience to speak. And I spoke and I figured out that I enjoy speaking and sharing my story and who I am. And because I found this purpose, I figured out that there's so much more that I could be putting my energy towards than these fights, than getting involved with what I was getting involved at that time. And I used that experience later down the line at 16 years old, after losing friends to violence, after losing family members to violence, as a way for us to prevent this from happening to any other young person. And whether that's by going to the young person who's at risk of perpetrating the violence, or the young people who are surviving losing a parent or losing a cousin, showing them that there is greater purpose in life than what you're seeing right in front of your on your street, outside your porch. There is so much more. And everything that I've done in my work is because of these experiences that I went through on my own. And luckily I was given the wisdom, and I believe in God. I believe it was sent straight through God, letting me know that what I've been through, there's 2 ways to take it: to either take it and follow the cycle, or to take it and ensure that I make change happen. And I decided to make change happen. And even now, and I'll be honest with you, to be an elected official at 19 years old is some pressure. Because I'm young and there's some, there's going to be mistakes I'm going to make, and there's eyes on my life, all around, both in Rochester, and I've been able to speak around the state and around the country on youth mental health. So there's a lot of eyes watching Isaiah Santiago. Is he going to fail? Is he going to succeed? And that's a lot of pressure. But what I learned is that in order to successfully deal with this pressure and still remain Isaiah Santiago, I have to understand me. And what I did purposely, after winning the November election, between getting sworn in January 2nd, so from November to January, I purposely pushed myself in a place to deal with the past traumas and the past hurts now. And it wasn't easy. And then so as we speak about, making these decisions on dealing with our issues the correct way, it wasn't easy. And if I knew all that, some people may not go down that route, but I knew that it was necessary. And so between November and January, I had to search within myself. Who is Isaiah Santiago? Why are you doing this work? Let's establish that now. So when later down the line, when you're in the, when things are moving, let's make sure that we stay where I said since day one why I'm doing this work. And I purposely pushed myself in that. And my friends are like, Isaiah, you getting distant. I'm like, I know. I got some work to do within myself. I'll be back in January. And when I'm back, I'm coming back with some fire. But for right now, I have to deal with myself before I sit in this leadership position where there is pressure for me. And there's pressures of perfection. Some people expect me to be perfect, not to make any mistakes. But I understand within myself that under any pressure, under any role, I must stay Isaiah Santiago. And who is Isaiah Santiago? And that's what I figured out between November and January.
And first off, I want you to know that it's important that you realize that a lot of young people in this community, with your victory, they're starting to imagine themselves in places and spaces they never thought they would be. So it's really important that instead of trying to live up to somebody's expectations, that you authentically walk out to show folks that progress isn't perfect, right? But what is important is that you get up every day and you make the effort at being the best you can be. That's all any of us can hope for or expect. I want to touch on something that was brought up earlier, because in the chat, we had a question regarding one of the young people said that they feel like a lot of unhealed parents take their trauma out on their children. And somebody brought it up earlier. I think it was you, Maddie. You brought up earlier just that a lot of times a parent might come home from work and take those frustrations out on their kids, and then they owe them an apology. What would be some insights and advice you would give that young person on trying to deal with that kind of a situation if they live in a household like that?
This is a tough one, right? Because our parents are, they control our housing. They control what we receive. They control how our day starts before we leave for school in the morning. They have a lot. Shouts out to you, Prep, the people who asked that question too, because I appreciate that. That's a really good one. It's actually my favorite one, because they say, we try to give advice, what would you say to a parent, but what do you say to a student going through that is don't give up. I'm gonna say this because I'm gonna share my own personal experience. I think for me, and my mom wasn't even, super duper strict, but she worked hard. Y'all saw my mama more than I saw my mama. And so when you come home as a person that, her husband is fighting cancer and her job is really difficult and she wears a million different hats, and there are people that want to stop her from doing good things for her community. There are people that want to stop her from being able to care for her family. That is a lot for a parent to carry. And I never stopped trying to see my mom as a human, because when it's your mom and she come home and you left that one fork in the sink, babe, and you knew that, or you didn't take the meat out before she got there, and you knew she bring that Super Saiyan up out of her. Now your mom is not human anymore. Now your mom is solely a mom. She's not a person that had a hard day at work. She's not a person that somebody got cut off in traffic today. She is none of that. She is just anger. And I don't understand it. And I don't care what she had going on today. She doesn't have a right to talk to me like that. And it becomes a thing where it's just like, okay, I can't deal with my mom. And take your space, draw a boundary, because you're allowed to do that. Keep yourself safe first. It's your job to keep, especially the older you get, it becomes increasingly more of your responsibility to keep yourself safe. But don't give up on your parents quite yet. They're people, and all your parent wants is for you to see them. They spend all day providing and grinding and caring, and they're that mean because they're stressed out about how to make things happen and shake for you. And if you can keep remembering that your mom is a person somewhere deep inside the Super Saiyan is your mom, and that I'm going to get older and I'm going to get the tools, I'm going to get the language, and I'm going to bring it home, and I'm going to say, Mom, you're a human, you had a hard day, and I see you, and I'm going to take my time. I'm going to leave that with her. I'm going to just start small and say, Mama, how was your day? Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm going to start small. We want our parents to be the ones that come to us, because that's the natural order, is that your parents should parent you. But at the same time, like, we can't always rely on that. And if we wait for that to happen, it won't ever, because they don't have the time. You just heard people that were parents tell you, when am I supposed to find the time, right, to do that? And so keep in mind that, this is somebody that's responsible for your success. They feel responsible for your well-being. They feel responsible for every single little thing that happens to you, what you look like when you come home, down to every hair on your head. And if you can keep that human aspect in mind when you deal with your parents, then your relationship can be repaired.
Can I jump in really quickly? I think it's an interesting question. It's a powerful question. I'm just speaking from I wasn't raised by my mother or my father, so I didn't have them in my life when I was growing up. But the one thing that I think about all the time is that you are not a therapist. You are not a psychologist. And I do believe that you have to get the tools for yourself to be able to navigate that environment, because I grew up in some bad environments. And so I think the benefit of me being at Teen Empowerment as a teenager was that I gained tools so that I could navigate the environment that I was in, and preserve myself versus being pulled into all of the toxic trauma that was around me in that environment. The other thing that I think about and I talk about all the time is that teen empowerment, I had to challenge this because I realized that we're giving young people all of these tools to, we're looking at the root causes. We're talking about systemic racism and internalized racism and, social change and how you can speak out against these systems. And they're taking us home to a household that are not having these conversations. And so as an organization, the challenge became, and you prep school, the challenge becomes, how do we engage parents at a deeper level, right? Where the young people that are spending time with us, they're gaining these tools, they're getting the things that they need. How do we create an environment where parents can come in and they can engage with us? And I think that is really important, because I know my son is so excited when he learns, like, Black History Month. My son is so excited because he knows that he's going to come home and he's going to have a conversation with a mom who knows Black history, right? And it's so empowering in that space. And so if we create more welcoming environments for parents to be able to engage, I think that'll also help to support you being able to navigate those environments, and then trick them into, if you in therapy, trick them into going to a therapy session with them, right? Invite them to some of the things that you have going on so that they can then be exposed to it, because sometimes all you need is exposure, and that in itself can be life-changing. So I just wanted to add to what Maddie was saying.
I appreciate both of those responses. And I want to shout out Devin and all the scholars over at UPrep too. And make sure if y'all have any other questions, put them in the chat, because we're here for you. Full stop. I want to revisit some of the comments that Devin made earlier, though, because one of the elders, an anonymous elder in the community, wanted to talk about prayer. And she was saying that she's a firm believer that prayer has power, and a lot of what folks are waiting for is in prayer. I'll just fully disclose that my faith is actually what carried me through a lot of my adversity in life. Long before I was here, when I graduated high school, I went to the Marines. I went to Afghanistan twice, and my faith went to a whole nother level in the midst of a war. So I want to talk to anybody else on the line who feels like their faith really has been a positive and productive means at helping them get through some difficult things, and not just as an opiate, right? I'm not talking about faith as an opiate, but it's actually also helped you grow and develop as a person.
I just want to throw this out there really quickly, that prayer is powerful. It is amazing to converse with whomever you believe, whatever your faith is, it is amazing. However, there's prayer and then there's action. And so when you pray, the prayer becomes, what is the action now that I need to take? Direct the action. And so that is, I think sometimes we spend a lot of time praying, and we don't spend a lot of time acting. And I think that is why a lot of people, call out churches in our community, because you have to take whatever that you're experiencing and you're praying about within your ministries, you have to then take that out to the community and engage the community in a deeper way. And so for me, my faith is at the root of everything that I do, but I do understand after I talk to the Lord, it's time for me to get up off my behind and go out and do something and make some changes. And because I know that if I'm praying about it, I know that He's calling me to do it. And so I'm a firm believer that if you find something that's missing in the community, if you find something that's not there, He's probably calling you to be able to do that work. So I just wanted to say prayer and action go hand in hand.
And I just say also the basis of the prayer is the faith. And so I get that, is that you got to keep believing that things are going to get better. And that is important. That is a very big piece of that. I grew up Pentecostal at Frost Avenue Church. I passed that church a million times. That was my church. Okay. But what it does take is that, yeah, you have to have faith. You have to still believe in faith has helped me. I pray all the time to just give me the strength to feel differently about it. But they always say, faith without work is dead. It's not anything. There's nothing there. We could keep talking about what we want to do, but we got to build on it. And I think it is important to have faith. And I think prayer gives you like it's hope. Hope is important. I don't think hope has ever lost its place in mental health as a conversation. But we don't. Kids have always had hope. The reason why we have to be there the way we're talking about it right now is because they've been hoping, and they've got nothing. And so we really need to be intentional and recognizing that.
And you know what? I want to, and you and Shantara, y'all just tag team that, and I appreciate that. And I want to go a little bit deeper because in the distractions of today, if you don't have any concept of who you are, the world is ready and willing to tell you who they want you to be. And you know, a lot of folks fall under that pressure, right? Going back to the disease to please and trying to be what you think other people want you to be that, you know what, to be cool, to be that, the be or the end, whatever you trying to be, right? Can you talk about how faith helped you find your purpose? Talk about purpose.
You want to go first, Ian? Or somebody else?
I thought Isaiah was gonna hop in there.
Oh, go ahead.
So
they alley-oop it to you, Zay.
here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. And this is me being like wholly transparent in this moment, that there were issues that I found in my faith because I oftentimes felt like I couldn't merge my faith with my activism because I didn't see that happening. And so as I got older, I had to define what my faith looked like for myself. And so I believe that God cares about injustice. I believe Jesus cares about injustice. I believe that God cares about oppression. And I believe that he wants to do something about it. And that's why he's calling his people to do the work. So, but I had to actually like grow up and define that because I was going to church every Sunday and we were singing and we were worshiping and we were fellowshipping together. However, I didn't see the change happening in the community. And so I realized like, oh, wait a minute, Shan, you're a believer. You do it. You bring this to the community. And so I do feel like there is a charge that comes along with faith. And I truly believe that faith is at the root of it. When I read the Bible, I hear oppression, injustice, and flipping over tables and temples, right? And so that's the attitude that I have, that seek justice. That is a scripture. Like there's a scripture that says seek justice, you know? And so for me, I think that has been a pivotal part of my development and my growth in my life. But yeah, anybody, y'all can hop in and talk about it.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that. Anybody else want to add, Isaiah, what you got to say about purpose?
No, I kind of wanted to speak about, you know, in the beginning you said that if a young person doesn't know who they are, it's easy to pick up what society and what people have put on them. And this is when we touch into solutions. I think it's important for families, for parents, for communities to ensure that we are raising up our children to know that they are beautiful, that they are wonderfully made, that they have purpose, that they are beautiful in the skin that they're in, that you know, because there's so many things that's put out there that really projects things on our young people. Our young people are going to school having to go through metal detectors as if they're criminals. Our young people are you know, and not saying that I'm against it. Let me make that clear. You know, for that's on the news. But I'm saying that we have to be careful and we have to ensure that we are feeding into our young people, because what we see is that young people have found a sense of belonging in the wrong things. And that's because we have not let them know that you are you and it's okay to be you. And what happens is with social media, there's a standard that these young people are like, my life isn't up to that standard. So they hate their life. There's these groups where they feel like they have a family, whether that's in the gang, whether that's part of the Kia Boys or the young people who are selling cars, whatever that is. But it's important for us to be preventative in our own sense to ensure that we are raising up our young people to understand that they have purpose and that they are beautifully made in the person that they are, because we see depression, we see suicide really stemming from these young people not knowing who they are. But it's also important to understand that we have such of an opportunity with our education system to help our young people on every single and every single circumstance, because some young people don't have that parent. Some young people don't have that community. Some people don't have that mentorship, but the education system can fill that gap. There's possibilities to do it. I think that as we have conversations focusing on the contemporary issues that we face, the school should be educating our young people on mental health just as much as we're educating our young people on math and English and ELA. Let's teach our young people how to de-escalate situations. Let's teach our young people how restorative practices are amazing. Let's teach our young people how to really learn who they are to deal with emotions that they may not, or hurt that they've been going through. Because what we see in our community is simply hurt young people who don't know how to deal with their hurt, but to either hurt other young people or get involved into things that temporarily satisfy the hurt. And the hurt is never resolved. They're doing it and it temporarily satisfy it, but they're still hurt on the inside. And if we can look at the hurt young person and not the Kia boy or not the young people from Rochester, New York, if we can look at this is just a hurt young person, and with just a little bit of guidance, will go down the right path. Let me make this clear. Middle school, beginning of high school, Isaiah Santiago was the student that nobody wanted in their classroom. But because there were people who believed in me and really kept me and made me understand that there's ways to focus in your talents. And to be real with you, I'll tell you the truth. In middle school and high school, the reason why I was always in trouble is because I was challenging rules and procedures that didn't make sense to me. And that's what it was. But we look at now, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm just advocating. I'm doing the same thing, but I have moved it and toned it in to a different way of doing it. So we can do this with our young people all across the field. But that happens through mentorship. That happens through our community. That happens through family. And of course, we have to ensure that we are doing that. And then I'm gonna say the last thing, and I'm done talking. We have to ensure that we focus on the fact that we have a generational divide that must be fixed. We have our young people on one island and our older people on another island. And the truth is, you guys have the answers that we need and the wisdom that we need. And we have the answers that you guys need for the contemporary issues that we're dealing with. But because we're so far divided, we cannot move forward because we refuse to listen to each other. I think we have to go into a season where we rebuild a bridge of trust, understanding, and open-mindedness so our generations can come together to ensure that we are dealing with issues in ways that are relevant and that we are ensuring that we are succeeding our generations and our young people because they deserve it. Our generation and our community deserves to be successful, deserves to be in the trade system, deserves to be a businessman, deserves to be in the government. Whatever it is, they deserve it. And we have to do what we can do to ensure that we are taking this the right way. That we are taking this the right way that really does touch in and stay focused on our young people. I'm done.
Powerful.
And that's why I voted for him. And that's why I voted for him.
I think we all did. Real
So
to the whole panel, we had an anonymous attendee just say, I'm so energized by these young people in the community speaking up about youth mental health and advocating. Woo, woo. I sit here as a 40-year-old something white woman who has provided mental health treatment in a local residential facility. I've seen the impact of trauma in our community through the eyes of the clients I work beside. I'm not blind to the valley that divides me from the lives my clients have lived and work hard to build personal relationships, but there's nothing like the ability to truly understand as those of you on the panel can. Thank you to the young Black and brown people who are up and fighting for our youth. You make the difference and you are the now. So thank you for that comment to the panel because y'all lighting this on fire up here.
I just got one thing to say when it comes to purpose. Unlike some people that's on the panel, I did not find my purpose in a religion. It was a religion based, but more so from African cultural values. We just celebrated Kwanzaa and Nguzo Zaba. That was I hold that near and dear to my heart. And if you know my works, Ujima and Ujima is real values that I try to manifest in my reality. So I learned most of mine, and the reason why I found purpose was African cultural principles, which is also found in a lot of the religious texts.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say to Devin's comment too, I think that it's important that the identity is such a huge part. And I feel like because young people in our community are not growing up in environments, are not learning about themselves, are not learning about the Nguvu Saba, like they're not experiencing in that. And so they aren't developing identities that are rooted and planted. And so I think there's a beauty in being able to be connected to your roots, to being able to know who you are. And I think that we have to also strive for that. When we talk about intergenerational relationships, I learned about all of that I didn't have that in my household. I wasn't growing up in that, but it was the elders in the community that I connected with as a teen that helped to guide me down that pathway of understanding the importance of eldership, to understanding the importance of communicating and building relationships and passing down wisdom and passing the torch, and the weight that's on us as the next generation to do this work. And I think that Devin's saying finding that purpose in our African cultural values is really powerful. And I want to say that we should be striving to teach and educate history and knowledge that looks like the individuals who are sitting in our classrooms, who are sitting and standing before us, because I think that is so important for my son to know that he is powerful because of the legacy that came before him, and that he is standing on the shoulders of individuals who fought for him to be that. And I'll share this really quickly, and I don't want to go on a tangent, but my proud mama moment. He wanted a Black Lives Matter birthday party, right? And I'm ready for I'm ready for PS5 birthday parties. But when my baby was like, Mom, I want a Black Lives Matter birthday party, and I want everybody to come dressed up either in a Black Lives Matter outfit or a Black historical figure, that is powerful because he feels a connection to that. He feels a connection to the history that came before him. And all of our young people, Black, brown, and in between, need to be able to feel that connection to those who have come before them. So I just wanted to comment on Devin's comment.
Thank you for that. And I want us to start being mindful of time. I got one question from Bishop Johnson. Shout out to Bishop Johnson. And then I want you all to have at least one thing a young person can take away from this conversation, or one thing an older person in this generation who is willing to be a part of bridging the gap and the delta between generations can take away from this conversation. But Bishop Johnson said, what do you all see as the greatest obstacle facing this generation?
I think we gotta be careful about picking one thing sometimes. I think that's where we go wrong. Is that there is no, I wouldn't say there's any one ginormous thing. We're here to do the educating, right? And that's one thing that I think a lot of people feel like they would benefit from, but there are lots of things. It's a complex issue. I would say that most than anything else, I think we struggle with a little bit of action. We like to call Rochester the land of good starts. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but the land of good starts is like Rochester. Yeah, that's a tough one. If you're from here, you felt that. And I think that is where it starts. We have these conversations. I've been a part of panels similar to this one. Never with everybody, you know what I'm saying? Y'all are a very diverse group of panelists. And I think this is what makes it different in this particular situation. But it is about continuously doing things. I think when I work with youth, the biggest thing, they're like, okay, I love this. I love that we just do it here. I needed to get next week. And I'm like, this was a lot we just did. This was a full conference. This was a summit. This was the thing, but we can try it. I think the most important thing is that we have these conversations and then we put them on the back burner. And then we tell kids like, okay, we're going to pull you out of school this week for this particular conference, but we're going to put you back in school every other day. And, you know, seat time and instruction time is very important, but I think it sends the message that, yeah, this is important, but you being in that seat and being obedient is more important. And I think that's a really big issue of why we can't break down some of the things and see more successes for our youth, is that we stop. We drop the ball. We should be a little bit more relentless. And I sit here with people that do the work every day, every single day, wake up. The work wakes them up. Everybody on this call get work waking up in the morning. You don't even get to wake up on your own choosing anymore because you work so hard. And I think that everybody in organizations have to choose to be very deliberate on how we support the people that work that hard, and how we put things in place that are lasting, okay? That are not temporary, not for this year, not just for this funding year, right? But in general, that bring us through, that are actually like things that we can depend on, that our community can depend on. That's my opinion. That's our biggest issue.
there's a lot of issues, and I agree with what Madeline just said. You know, there's a lot of issues. There's no specific issue, you know, that's the main one. But I do want to speak about, you know, our city, our Rochester city kids, and how that we've allowed a stigma to come against our young people in Rochester. We have allowed a minority of young people in Rochester to overshadow a majority of young people in Rochester. And there's a lot of people here in this city as young people who are doing some great and amazing things. But if you go on Channel 10 right now, you would never know, because it'll cover a young person getting involved into something negative before they'll cover a young person who got a 4.5 in the last marking period. So it's important to also look at that and not allow that at the same time. We have to focus on the fact that our young people are young people who are resilient, doing great things, and let's give them the spotlight just as much as we're giving every other situation the spotlight. And not saying that it's not an issue. We have issues. I'm not trying to be not trying to overlook that, but we also can't overlook the positivity that our young people are giving here in Rochester, New York.
And I just hop into pay them, give them your money. I think for me, the biggest thing that I always say, like, put your money where your mouth is, right? Like, we do these conferences, we speak on panels, we go to summits, we're bringing young people to summits, we're paying someone $10,000, $15,000 to fly in and to give us all of this information, but there's a young person that we won't give $50 to. And so for me, I want our community to put their money where their mouth is, pay them. They are the experts because they are living it on a daily. And I am more than willing to come and have conversations with anybody, any organization. But what I really want to do is bring some young folk along with me and let you talk to them personally, because they're the ones that are living it right now. So yeah, it's good for the bag. If you invest in them, it's good for the city, it's good for the bag. And we are a city. I think Maddie said the city of good starts. The other thing is that we are resource rich and we are results poor. So we have a ton of resources here that are not being utilized effectively. Pay our young people, invest in them, employ them, give them more opportunities to do meaningful and positive work.
Devin, you got anything to add before we give everybody their takeaways?
They said it all, man. Yeah, they said it all. I'm just honored to be on this panel, and poverty is key. So pay them.
I'm gonna need you to hold an entrepreneurial workshop for businesses. I'm gonna need you to show them how to get paid, okay? All right, now talk to these young folks right now. Tell them one thing, y'all. And first off, this panel did an amazing job by really speaking, I think, from the experience of so many people who don't have platforms like this to speak for themselves from. So imagine that young person who has to go home to that. Imagine that young person who's still in that toxic relationship. Imagine that young person right on the threshold of suicide, or getting on a prescription drug, or about to go get high. Talk to them. What's the first thing I can do different today, right? We might live in the land of first starts, but help their life not become that. This year, I'm going to do it different. Next year, I'm going to do it different. Next week, I'm going to do it different. What's the one step they can take today to put their whole life on a different path? Give them that takeaway.
I'm gonna say this. You being angry at the person that you are today because it's not the person that you want to be tomorrow, and you beating yourself up about it, is not gonna make you any more into that person that you want to be tomorrow. You know that you want to change inside you. When you feel in yourself that you're getting ready, you feel it in your heart that you want to make a change in your life, you be kind to yourself. You give yourself grace and you stick to what you say you're going to do. But just know that beating up on yourself or feeling bad about yourself is only going to make you turn to that negative behavior more. You commit to a change and feel good about it, and feel good that every day that you are thinking about moving closer to that change was a successful day. Productivity is made up for capitalism. It doesn't exist. Your productivity is relative. What you feel like was a good, successful day, what you did with your 24 hours, even if all you did was exist, all you did was breathe, and all you did was stay here, that is enough. As long as you want more, you will have more.
I want to piggyback on that real quick because I think Brother Cat Williams gave us some good advice last week when he said, before you go to bed, if this is it, I might not wake up tomorrow. Are you happy? Right? Like if we start living our lives really think that every day this could be it, are we okay with how we live in our lives? Thank you, Maddie. Who else?
I'll jump in and I'll say this really quickly. To the young people, it may seem dark right now. It could be possibly very dark right now. But there are some caring adults that are out in this community who are here for you, who will show up for you in every way. And I'm a firm believer that who I can't reach, Dev can reach, and who Dev can't reach, Maddie can reach, and who Maddie can't reach, Isaiah can reach, and Adrian can reach. And we are all friends on Facebook. Find me on the book. Find me on Instagram. I am there. I am always on there. Find us, connect with us, write our names down. While we're on this screen, write our names down and find us, and we will get you connected to the resources and the services that you need to be connected to so that you can be a healthy and whole you.
Mm.
Tara said it all, man. There are resources here in Rochester and people who want to see you do well. Just say real quick, and I'll get up off of here. Live today for your 80-year-old self.
Mm.
And I'll leave that there.
I'll say, there was a lot said and just about, they covered a lot, but I'll say just understand you. Find you. And this is so important right now more than ever. Find you. And this is not, it's not an easy experience. It's not an easy process, but it's necessary. I promise you it'll be worth it. Find time to figure out what's your self-care. If you got to go to the, I go to the gym every day, 5 a.m. I didn't see Adrian this morning. He said he didn't see me, but I didn't see him this morning. But 5 a.m. I'm in the gym because this is my self-care time. Find time that matters to you. What matters to you, and understand that you will make it. Not you can, but you will make it. No matter what you're going through right now, no matter what experience it is, no matter what circumstance it is, you got this, and you will make it. And understand that anybody who has a dream, any young person who has goals, understand that it is possible. If you don't believe in yourself, allow me to be a representation. It is possible. Do the unheard. Dream bigger than you've ever dreamed before. Do what you know is right. I promise you, you'll always be happy.
Mm-hmm. I'll just leave you. I'll leave you all with this. My parents weren't the best parents to a young child. I came home from the war, and they were much better parents to a young adult. So people get better and they grow over time. So to Maddie's point, I think don't give up on your parents because they're going and trying to work out their own situation too. But you have to find what you need to do to be successful. And I'm gonna tell you this, stop looking at social media. Everybody on this panel is successful, and I bet you they all got told they couldn't get the job that they really, really wanted. They couldn't get the boyfriend or the girlfriend that they really, really wanted. They couldn't get the car that they wanted the first time. They got probably evicted. They probably was on food stamps at some point, or at least held a food stamp for some of us old enough to have held them before. We had to wear Bobos before. I'm sure some of y'all weed wasn't the best you wanted to be at certain given times. Your hair wasn't what you wanted to be. It ain't perfect. Life is not perfect. And you have to know that as long as you're working towards where you want to be in life, you will get there. But that has to come from you, no matter how many people tell you, no, you can't. And I'll do you one better. They're going to tell you no, especially if you can do it because people are jealous and they're going to hate on you. You got to expect that. You have to expect that. And you have to learn that you're not really out here trying to prove and convince other people of how great you are. You got to persuade yourself so that everything life is going to bring at you doesn't cause you to stop. We all know how hard it can be, but we are all evidence and proof that you can genuinely get there. So with that, Elder, I don't know if you want to take it back. We tried to be good on time. We gave you 3 minutes back, so
Listen, absolutely, I'll take it back. And, I'm sitting here with many, 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 many emotions. And primary of those emotions is pride. I'm so proud of you all because y'all on fire. And y'all just made our conference so much better. But in all seriousness, I'm not surprised because I know who y'all are. And you all know that we started this conversation and you all repeated it several times that we have to be intentional about making this space for us to listen to you. And some of our audience members or participants know that, I am extremely proud and original member of Black Agenda Group. And a couple of months ago, we hosted these young people on Bag Live to have a very similar conversation. And it was so amazing that we said, oh, we have to find another way to do this and do this on an ongoing basis. Well, here comes the ABC conference. So I use a little privilege that I have in this seat to say, no, one of the things that we must do, anything that we do, is to make space for young people because, you see, as I privately messaged the panel and say, and the students have become the teachers. And I say that with a huge sense of pride because, since Devin started, quoting all these African proverbs, I got to drop the biggest one that I know when it comes to our young people. And y'all have heard me say it. Melanie Funches says it all the time. A youth who is not embraced by his or her community will burn it down to feel its warmth. Ladies and gentlemen who are still on this Zoom, this is just an example of the young people we have in Rochester. And trust me, it's not just the 5 of them. They got a crew. They got a crew. And we are extremely fortunate and proud again. I'm going to say that word proud again, to make space for them so that they can teach us what we need to do. Couple bit housekeeping things before you all go. Stay there with me, young people, for a second. The link to the ABC survey is in the chat. Please, 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 everyone, fill it out because, thank you, Jalen. She just put it up again. We are concerned about continuous improvement. What we want to do, we want to make this better because, again, back to the theme of our conference, beyond trauma, not negate the trauma. Oh, we know it. We don't want to understand it, but we want to put ourselves on a path to wellness. And just about everything that these young people told us will do that. They told us, just really, really quickly, because I took a bunch of notes. It is still difficult. I think Shan was who said this, to trust institutions that have been racist at their core. So know that if you are an institutional person, work on your institution. How about we just not be racist? That would be nice. We will have a healthier Rochester, a healthier Monroe County if, we were just all anti-racist people. Just do that. Devin, one of the busiest people I know, you know what he said today? One of the things, I'm too busy to deal with my trauma. And I know he said it personally, but it's a real thing that we just get busy just doing. And Isaiah mentioned that self-care, that I got to invest some time in Isaiah because so much is expected of me. He's still 19. He's a Superman. We know that, but he's still 19. Maddie's 22. Let's listen to our young people some more. And certainly that is our commitment as evidenced by this panel. And trust me, the feedback already is phenomenal. You saw it in the chat. We love you all. And I don't know if you all were able to hear, and I'm talking to the young people now, what Dr. Nichols said this morning about axiology and epistemology. Some of you have heard it before, but how crucial that is for us to really understand deeply who we are and who the people we're trying to interact with and get action out of them, along with the prayer. But the action has to come follow. We have to do things so that Rochester can be weller. Yeah, I'm going to invent a word. We all want to be weller. So to the panel, again, Asante Sana to all of you. That money that we paid y'all, just like I told the other panelists, we're going to double that money. You know what I mean? We're going to give you 100% increase. I can't come to the barbershop because I don't roll like that, you know, but thank you all.
But
Thank
Elder,
you so
before we cut, I just want to thank you for giving all of these voices, these powerful voices, a platform, because they were able to speak for some things and from some things that don't get to have platforms like this. So thank you for even envisioning this conversation and this powerful dialogue.